Have you ever seen and wondered about these under-seat car subwoofers? Well, I sure have. I reached out to Hyanka and see if they were interested in sending me one of their subwoofers for me to check out, and they did. There is no expectation that I will leave a positive review. I'm just going to review it as I would if I purchased it, though. Let's take a closer look at the Hyanka Soda 10 ASW 10-inch under-seat subwoofer. According to the box, 480 watts, intense bass power, easy installation, and includes remote. Let's take it out and see what's included. First up, we have the owner's manual, which I must say is one of the better owner's manuals I've seen for any electronics product, especially car audio. It talks about the history of the company, tells you what everything does, gives you great descriptions, including specifications here on the last page. Thumbs up, at least for the manual. Now you also get some mounting hardware and also high-level inputs for using speaker-level inputs into this device. Then we get a remote base cable here. Looks like an old telephone cord that your grandma used to use on her phone that hung on the wall. And then we have a plastic base remote. That's right, minimum to maximum. It has the connection on the back for that phone jack. And yeah, it just turns a little potentiometer. And there you go. Not much to it. It is plastic, but at least it's included. And lastly in the box, of course, but not least, is the actual powered subwoofer itself. Has a really nice aluminum enclosure. Has some weird looking dimples here on the outside on the top. Has the big Hyanka logo there at the bottom. And there's everything that's included that we just showed you. So now let's take a closer look at the enclosure itself. See what it's all about. We'll spin it around. You can see there's just connections on one end, which is nice for connecting it up. Here on the left, you see a 20 amp fuse. We have 12 volt remote and ground. Those are all via 8 gauge terminals. We have RCA low level inputs. We have the remote connection for the bass knob. We have high level inputs, an auto on, off and on switch, phase control, LEDs for power and protect, also input gain control from minimum to max, bass boost from 0 to 12 dB, and low pass from 180 Hz down to 50 Hz. That's pretty much it for this end of the amplifier. Other than that, if we flip it over onto the bottom so you can see that, it's this 10-inch slim underseat active power subwoofer Soda 10 ASW DC 12 volts 4 ohm 10-inch woofer. We go to their website, hyanka.com. We can read the specs. See, it's about $110 US at the time of this video. And there's all the specs we just kind of talked about. Signal to noise ratio 90 dB, bass boost 0 to 12, fuse rating 20 amp. But then you may be wondering, what about the dimensions? Well, 13.5 inches for the length, 9.6 inches for the width, and 2.9 inches for the height. So is the sub really 10 inches if the box is only 9.6 inches wide?
I don't think so.
And it's a valid question because tape measures don't lie. And as you can see here, just a little over 8 inches, about 8.5 inches is what we measured for the size of the woofer. So it's not really a 10-inch woofer. Why they call it a 10-inch active subwoofer? Maybe because it's about 10 inches wide, I guess. I'm not sure. Now I wanted to try this in a vehicle. First up, my 2001 Toyota Sequoia, but there's no room under the seats for this sub. So then let's move to the 2015 Toyota Highlander and try it out, and unfortunately it doesn't fit under the seat either. This is under the front seat, and then we also tried it under the second row. As you can see, the seat slides back, so these just do not fit in a lot of Toyotas. What a bummer. This does not fit in 2 vehicles so far. Now surely it'll fit in a 2019 Ford F-150 crew cab. Well, believe it or not, the seats in these have a lot of electronics attached to them, a lot of wires and wiring harnesses and such. So under the front seats, no, this subwoofer will not fit. It will fit under the back seat though, but I want to try this under a front seat. So again, fail. Now surely a car popular like the 2008 Honda Accord sedan, this subwoofer will fit, and you can see it's very close to fitting, but there is a problem. There's a vent underneath the seat which helps push air to the passengers in the rear, and it kind of gets in the way. You could fit the sub here, it would stick out a little bit, but it would block all of that air. So I would call this a fail for fitting under the seat for the Honda Accord. Our last chance is the 1937 Ford 4-door. This is my street rod, and yes, it fits under the seat with no problem. Either way, you can fit sideways or long ways. So that's how we're going to try it. Go Ford! All right, let's pump up the bass. It would do you good to have headphones or quality speakers to hear that previous segment. That gave you a better idea of what I was hearing. I will talk about my thoughts on the sound quality here later in the video, but first let's get the 6 screws taken out of the bottom and take a look at what's inside of this powered subwoofer. Of course, there's going to be a subwoofer driver and an amplifier that has an input board and some controls on it. There's also an acoustic panel here, and also you can see the construction here of this metal or aluminized enclosure. And there's a good look at the amplifier. We will talk about that a little bit later in the video once we get it taken apart a little bit so you can see it better. But let's wire it up here on the bench, connect it up straight to the SMD Demore Engineering amplifier dyno so we can check the power output of this amplifier that's built into the sub. If you haven't seen these tests before, on the left, the power output in watts, the middle, the ohm load, on the right, the voltage of the dyno. We'll also have the clamp so that we can estimate the amplifier's efficiency.
Ready?
According to the specifications from Hyanka, this is a 4 ohm subwoofer, so we're going to test the amp here at 4 ohms first. Certified is rated 120 watts. Let's see what we get. And not quite there. 96 watts, 14.23, certified at 40 hertz. Let's try it uncertified up to clipping, see if we can get closer to that 120 watts. And not quite. 97 at 14.24. Well, surely dynamic, we can get the 120 watts. Let's try it with the pulse track. And we're close. We're still a few watts away though. 112 at 14.26. We might have gotten 120 at 14.4. But let's try it at 2 ohms. Even though it has a 4 ohm subwoofer inside, you're never going to see this much power. The amplifier seemed to do these tests without having any trouble. Let's try it certified first, and there you go, 134 watts, 14 volts. So definitely the amplifier here is capable of 120 watts plus. Uncertified up to the clipping point, get a little more, 138 at 14 volts, pulling about 25 amps of current. It is a 20 amp fuse, but these tests do not last long enough to pop the fuse. Dynamic test, 154 watts right at 14 volts. So as you can see here, this amplifier is capable of delivering over 100 watts to the subwoofer. Now, as far as the results go, you can see them. Efficiencies are on the right and not very good, and that's because this is a Class AB amp. We will show that once we get back inside the enclosure. Let's go ahead and do that. But first, let's take off the subwoofer so we can take a closer look at it. Now, taking the 8 screws out, the sub did not want to come off the panel here. Made me think, let me get out Richard here so we can get it undone. Now, if you don't know what I mean by Richard, then you're not old enough, but those who are old enough, leave a comment below about what I meant about Richard. Here's the subwoofer, very thin, not a whole lot going on here, but there is one thing you'll notice. It has a rubber surround, it has kind of an aluminized cone, and it looks like a stop sign.
All right, stop.
This is not a Mickey Mouse program.
Anyway, I digress. Here is the subwoofer, and yes, thin. It is thin. It is about 2.5 inches for the height, which is super thin for an almost 10-inch sub. And here is the amp board. We can see 1,000 microfarad 25 volt capacitors, also 2,200 microfarad 50 volt. These are Zuhao. Okay, let's take out a few screws here so we can take a closer look at what's going on with the transistors to see what they're all about. Take 4 screws, we'll flip it up. You can see there's a lot of goop here on the bottom. They look like TO220s. Also, the larger ones there, I believe, are for the power supply. If you are a technician, let us know below what you think these are. Now let's move on to the pros and cons of this powered subwoofer. Obviously inexpensive, about 110 bucks. Does come with a bass remote. Has a really nice aluminum enclosure. Metal speaker grill to protect that speaker. It is compact and slim. It also has high and low level inputs, so hook it up to your factory system or to an aftermarket system. Now, things that could be better, you saw it took 5 vehicles for us to find one that would actually fit in, so make sure you check your fitment. Low bass output is not too great. It does have a Class AB amp, which is not very efficient. Should have had a 2-ohm woofer. It probably would have done a little better. And you must understand the limitations of a device like this. It is not designed to replace a larger subwoofer in a larger box. It's really designed just to add you kind of like a factory premium sound system does these days. Gives you a little bit of extra bass. Nothing's going to shake your rear view mirrors. It's not going to shake you in your seat. It's just going to give you just a little bit more bump. And as long as you understand that and have those expectations, you may be happy with something like this. But for me, it's not quite enough. But I do thank Hyanka for sending it over. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Till next time, Big D, I'm out of here. Maybe difficult for you guys to understand the bass here, but I'm going to try Space Age Hustle. Headphones would be good right now. Tell where it reaches that point if I'm not getting any louder, which is about right there. Ooh. Let's see if we get any more juice. Nope. It's definitely bottoming out there. All right, let me see if I can get a picture of the woofer moving.